Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking, Barry, Bottomless Hole, all back here again, and we're not skipping a beat today, okay? I just woke up. We are here today to talk about the brand new SBS. That's right, we're talking about SBS 102 that was just released over a month ago, but we're here talking about it now, finally. Woo! All right, yeah. So in case you're curious about that, how come it took so long to get SBS 102, the breakdown, out? It was because, yes, it did come out in mid-April, the Tankobon did, but I didn't get the translation until weeks later, because normally I just go on the One Piece subreddit and the translation is there, and it was there. It was like a couple of pages, but like not the whole thing. So I wanted to wait until we had like a whole translation of the SBS before I talked about it, and I think the issue was in mid-April, that's when all the crazy One Piece chapters were being released, like chapter 1043, and then the even crazier 1044, and don't even get me started on 1045, and then 1046 was like, okay, but then 1047, that's when like all these crazy One Piece chapters were going on, and I think the SBS 102 translation just sort of fell off by the wayside. The full translation's been out for a while now, but since I missed the boat when it was first released, I was like, I'll get to it when I get to it. So here we are, like a month and a half later, almost, talking about it. There was an episode of the One Piece podcast where they had the official One Piece English translator for Shonen Jump, Stephen Paul. Actually, Stephen Paul, he has the same middle name as me. Wait, no, Paul, that's probably his last name. Okay, whatever. Anyway, my middle name's Paul. Nice to meet you. So he was actually on that podcast, and he translated the whole SBS like live on that. So I'll put the link to that below. Also, I have the One Piece wiki open right here where the full translation of 102, or almost a full translation of 102, is right here just for reference, so we'll go through the questions today. Also, this is an interesting one because Katsuhisa Hoki, who is Jinbei's VA, was actually on the SBS as well, answering some Jinbei-related questions. This is a callback to way back, I think, around Thriller Bark or Sabaody, where Oda would actually invite the Straw Hat VAs into the SBS, and they would do, like, interview questions and answer questions specifically about, like, they would have, like, Nami's voice actress, and she would answer questions specifically about Nami and, like, what she likes about her character and stuff like that. So, because Jinbei just joined the Straw Hats, they got Katsuhisa Hoki on to answer some Jinbei-related ones. So that's pretty interesting. Okay. But anyway, we've waited long enough for this one, so let's just dive right in. This will be SBS 102. The first important question is, let's start with this one, because this one really, you know how crossover battles can really divide a fandom? Well, this is the ultimate crossover battle right here. So just try not to argue in the comments, guys. Let's just keep this civil. Okay. If Luffy, Kid, and Law played a game of rock, paper, scissors, who would win? Now, look, I understand everyone's immediately going to jump to, well, Luffy can see the future, therefore he solos rock, paper, scissors. They actually included that in there, though, the person that asked the question. Would it be Luffy because he has future sight? And so Oda's response to this, now this is a big deal, okay, because to my knowledge, it doesn't usually happen very often where mangakas or authors will actually, weigh in on power scaling debates, like who would win, Goku or Saitama. You don't often get like one and, oh wait, hold on. Mangaka of Dragon Ball, come on. Akira Toriyama, there we go. It took a while. Okay, there's a lot of mangakas out there, all right? It took me a minute to process. It's not like you're going to get one in Akira Toriyama to actually debate this. But Oda right here, he actually answers it. Okay, this is a great question. It's true that Luffy could see the future, and he could do that to win, but Luffy hates cheating. Ah, so you didn't think of that, did you? So I don't think he'd look into the future. The three of them don't get along very well with each other. I think they'd end up fighting no matter who wins. So basically, yeah, I guess that does make sense, because even if Luffy did not use his observation hockey, did not use his future sight, and he was just playing the game like normal, and then, like, if he happened to win anyway, Kid and Law would just be like, you cheated, you used future sight, like, I didn't cheat, and he's like, yeah, right, and then they would just start getting into a fight no matter who would win. So I love how Oda just leaves off the question there. Yeah, the winner of the rock, paper, scissors match itself is inconsequential. It'll lead into an actual brawl between the three of them, and I'm not getting involved with that. You know what I mean? So that's the first question. Next up, we have another question about Eneru being a pirate. So this is another throwback to a really old SBS SBS question. I can't remember what volume it was in, but it was basically asking, like, okay, if Eneru was a pirate on the Blue Sea, what would his bounty be? And this was way back pre-time skip, and Oda listed his bounty at 500 million at minimum. Now, 500 million, I mean, like, nowadays, it's really not that big of a deal because we're, like, in the billions at this point. If one of the Straw Hats, like, if Brooks' bounty was 500 million after this arc, after Wano, that would be a big deal, of course. But, you know, 500 million back pre-time skip, that was a huge deal, okay? However, Oda did clarify in that question that Eneru would not be the end-all, be-all. There are so many other really strong, I think this might even be before he mentioned the Yonko, so maybe that's who Oda was referring to. Like, Eneru is strong, and he's got a really powerful Logia, and he's got really powerful observation haki, but he would not be the strongest person on the Blue Sea. He would not rule it. And I think he was probably referring to, like, you know, eventually Eneru would run into Big Mom and Kaido and Shanks and Whitebeard back then. And, yeah, I don't think Eneru could have been able to defeat them. I think they would have been a lot stronger. I think Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks could easily have defeated Eneru. Whitebeard probably could as well. It's just he was ill. But even with his sickness, I think Eneru, oh my god, I want to see Eneru fight Whitebeard. That would have been such a cool fight, because Eneru would have just been like, I am a god, old man. And then Whitebeard's just like, look, yeah, but do you have a family? I have no need for a family, for I am God. And then Whitebeard's like, all right, I don't think you and I are going to see eye to eye here. Like, Whitebeard, I think, would try to, like, have a little bit of a conversation with him, but, you know, Eneru's head is just so far up his own ass that it's just like, you know, it wouldn't reach, okay? And then Whitebeard would just, like, you know, clean his clock, basically. So anyway, that's a completely unrelated tangent, because this question is just asking Oda to draw Eneru's Jolly Roger if he was a pirate, so here it is. That was probably the shortest question that took me like 3 minutes to get through. So let's move forward. Let's move on. We got a lot more today. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay. So, remember the scene when Momonosuke becomes an adult and then he transforms into a dragon and he rides back up to Onigashima and Luffy is there? And then you have the scene with Kaido meeting Momonosuke in his adult dragon form. And it's a moment where Kaido is just like, what? And Momonosuke's like, because Momonosuke is still scared because it's still Kaido. So that scene was actually an artwork that was in a temple in Kyoto. So the temple is called Keninji Temple, which is located in Kyoto, that Oda actually visited before he wrote Wano, or before he drew Wano, to draw some inspiration, because Kyoto used to be the capital of Japan before it was Tokyo, okay? So he went to Kyoto. There's a lot of old, like, temples and castles and everything there. Kind of reminds me of the time whenever Kubo, when he was drawing the last arc, the Thousand Year Blood War arc, which takes a lot of inspiration from Germany. He actually went to Germany for a while to, you know, like, look at the architecture and understand, like, oh, okay, this is like an old school German castle or something. I'm going to use that in inspiration for, like, the Quincy's in the final arc. So Oda went to Kyoto for research, and it really just, it's awesome because he walks into this temple and he sees this giant mural of two dragons. And one of the dragons really does look like Momonosuke, where one of the dragons is like, what? Looks really scared. And Oda looks at this awesome piece of artwork in this temple and he's just like, I'm putting that in my manga. I'm drawing that for One Piece, right? So it really makes me think that it really is kind of like a D&D sort of thing for Oda, where it's like whenever you're coming up with like a homebrew campaign for D&D, you'll take pretty much a bunch of stuff from various like novels you like, or video games, or movies, or anime, or manga, and throw it all in your homebrew. That's basically what Oda is doing. He's like, wow, that's a really cool piece of art that was drawn like hundreds of years ago. That's going in my pirate manga. You know, I love that. And so that's the origin of that scene with the two dragons like meeting each other. It's actually very appropriate considering what the actual artwork looks like. Here's the next question that's all about Frankie, okay? And you know what? There's something I've noticed, because the last SBS question had a lot of stuff about Frankie there as well. And I just wanted to say that when it comes to asking questions about characters, like specifically the Straw Hats in the SBSs, basically there's two different camps here. One is all about Nami's boobs, and Robin's boobs as well. And the other one is, how the hell does Frankie's body work? That's like the two major camps of, you know, questions relating to the Straw Hats. You know, I was thinking about Nami's boobs last night, and also, how does Frankie fall asleep? So Oda is here to answer this, so don't worry. So there's a little bit piece of artwork here, like, this is the confusing part, because Frankie has those two giant orbs on his shoulders, right? Now, I always assumed he could just take those off, but I guess he can't. There's like rocket launchers in them and like cannons and shit. So it makes sense why he couldn't just remove those, all right? So the question is, well, how does he sleep then? Because there's a little diagram I'll show here where, if these giant orbs are there, if he tries to lay down, that's going to do hell on his ankles. That's not going to be good there. So Oda decided to create, of course, the ultimate Frankie, device of his cyborg self, of Battle Frankie 37, and that is, of course, the Frankie airbags. So Frankie actually has the most freedom whenever it comes to sleeping. Okay, he can sleep literally wherever he wants. He could sleep on a hard tile floor. He could sleep on a rocky shoreline because it doesn't matter, because he has two strategically placed airbags on his back. One is like on his lower back that creates a giant airbag for his lower body, and the other one is like on his neck, so it like creates a pillow wherever he is. And so Frankie could literally just be like walking around and he's like, I'm tired. And then he could just fall down and just Frankie airbag, poof, poof. And then, yes, I shall sleep here now. And then that's how Frankie does it. He doesn't even need a bed. He just has an airbag, and it looks pretty cozy, actually, in the way Oda draws it here. Also, I would not be surprised if Frankie would actually use this technique in the manga, because here's the thing. Frankie's weakness has always been his back, and I think that was still confirmed in post-time skip. Even after training in, Vegapunk's lab for 2 years, he still couldn't figure out a way to modify his back, It's just, he was in the future land of Baltimore, but still, there was, like, limits to what he could do, right? So, he can build a Megazord, but he can't put armor on his back, okay? So I can actually see this working, though, to his advantage. Maybe this is the defensive capability. Let's say somebody goes to try to hit Frankie from behind. Frankie could just be like, Frankie airbag, and the airbag shoots out. Like, an airbag moves really powerful. Like, in a car, there's a reason why, if you're not wearing your seatbelt in a car and you get in an accident and the airbag could go off, there's a reason why that could actually, legitimately kill you. The idea is if you're wearing the seatbelt and the airbag goes off, it'll sort of like guide your body in the right position. But if you're not, or if your body's in a weird position, that airbag hits you, it could seriously like break your neck or something the way it goes out. So I'm just saying, like, somebody has like a giant club and they're like jumping and like trying to get Frankie off guard and like, I got you now, cyborg Frankie. Frankie's like, huh? And the airbag just shoots out of his neck and just hits the guy in the face and like, what? And then he gets stunned. That might be a legitimate battle tactic for Frankie in the future, and don't think it won't be, okay? So that's the question on how Frankie sleeps. He has a special Frankie airbag. Of course he does. Also relating to Frankie is, and this is something that I just assumed was like not even a big deal, but it was something I noticed. Whenever Frankie reveals his new body after the time skip, he has his arms, right, that have the star on there. But you notice there's also, like, Oda draws lines over the stars, and I just assumed that was just, like, a little aesthetic thing. I didn't think it was anything important. Somebody actually asked a question about it, and it's like, are those hairs? And Oda's like, yeah, they're arm hair. So Frankie built robotic, like, steel Wapo metal arms for himself that hide, like, it's like a toolbox. He has like tools inside of his arms because he's Frankie, but he's also like, well, I still need to be manly. So he like grafted arm hair on. He took out his own arm hair and then grafted it onto the Wapo metal. I don't think Wapo intended that to be used for his like invention, but still pretty interesting. Okay, so next question is about Zoro. We have a few Zoro questions in this one. So this is a question about Zoro utilizing the dead man's game against Kaido, where he uses the Ashura, and then like purportedly, like right now as we stand in the story, it is Zoro's strongest move, his Ashura dead man's game with the Enma, okay? And it could get even stronger if, like, Zoro improves with using the Enma itself, okay? But somebody was asking a question if that is related to the Rakugo play. Okay, and the play is called Jigoku Bake Moja no Tawamure. And Oda says, yes, it is. Now, we talked about Rakugo a little bit before, because one of Kaido's attacks, when Kaido goes into his flaming lava magma dragon, that's also in reference to a Rakugo play. And remember, Rakugo is a form of storytelling. It's like a traditional form of Japanese storytelling with very minimal props and like any sort of set. Basically, what happens is there's a stage, people come in, sit down in the audience, and then one person will walk out in Japanese garb, sit down, and without without standing up, without acting anything out, without only with only using a Japanese fan and like their facial expressions and their voice and like turning their head, they will act out an entire play basically, sometimes playing 2 or 3 parts in the play, if not more. Okay, so it's like a minimalistic Japanese form of storytelling that I'm actually very interested in. I want to read a lot more about this. But anyway, this Jigoku Bake story is essentially like a guided tour of hell, and I actually pulled up the article about what the story is about. So it's essentially about these 4 guys that travel through hell, but it's also sort of a comedy. Like they encounter like the Sanzu River and like King Enma's office and everything like that. They also are musicians though, and they will go around hell just playing their musicians, just annoying the shit out of like the Oni and the devils. They're just like, knock it off, you know? So it's sort of a comedy, and I guess that fits Oda's personality, and so that's where the inspiration for Dead Man's Game comes from. It sort of seems like it's more of a gag than a straight up like comedy, like a gag sort of story, but it sort of reminds me of like a version of Divine Comedy, of Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy of the Inferno, because that also is sort of like a guided tour through hell, and probably the most famous one in the entire world. But now I'm just picturing like if the Divine Comedy was literally like a gag manga. That's kind of what this story is, from what I'm getting from the synopsis of the story. So if I ever go to Japan and they're doing a Rakugo storytelling session or whatever, I would love to go and sit in on that, because that sounds very fascinating. So that's cool. Next up, we have the ultimate nose in all of One Piece. You thought the questions were all about who has the best boobs in One Piece? No, it's who has the longest nose in One Piece. That is the real question here, all right? So Oda goes ahead and ranks the top 5 longest noses in all of One Piece. Now, he's excluding Tenguyama Hitetsu because that would just be unfair. And also, he's excluding like the giants because, you know, they're much larger. Okay, so when it comes to just like humans or like human-sized characters, because a fishman is also included on this list, the top 5 noses are: number 5, Kaku. Number 4, Usopp. Oh, Usopp, you couldn't break the top 3, but you tried, damn it, you tried. Maybe go away and work on your nose a little bit and then come back next year. Get some rhinoplasty and then maybe come back next year. I don't know. Number 3 is going to be Katarina Devon with the bronze medal. Then we have Arlong, the sawtooth shark fishman. And then finally, the number 1 most epic nose in all of One Piece, Vasco Shot with the gold medal. Topa, 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 topa. So yeah, Vasco Shot, that is an impressive nose, I gotta say. Good job. All right. He's really done nothing in the series up until now, but that's actually his first accomplishment. The first thing that we really substantially know about Vasco Shot, other than the fact of like the basic stuff, like he was imprisoned in level 6, he's a member of Blackbeard's crew, he likes to drink a lot, because that's his epithet is, you know, heavy drinker Vasco Shot. The one thing that we actually know about him that's brand new: he has the most epic nose in all of One Piece. Now, I know Usopp basically has to fight against Van Augur in Blackbeard's crew, but I would still like to see a moment between Usopp and Vasco just looking at each other like, you know, Usopp's, like, he can either take it one of 2 ways. Usopp could be, like, jealous and be like, you have the most epic nose. I used to have the most epic nose. Or he could be like, teach me. Teach me, Senpai Vasco Shot. Teach me the ways of the nose. Vasco Shot's, like, drunk as shit, and he's like, oh, well, the first thing you gotta do is you gotta drink more. You're not drinking enough. If you drink, your nose will grow longer. And then Usopp will be like, that's crap. Zoro drinks every single day, and his nose isn't even close to the size of mine. And it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you then. You know, so that would be actually really funny for those two to, like, encounter one another. Because, you know, the Blackbeard Pirates and the Straw Hats are going to, like, fight at some point. So that'll be cool. So, yeah, there's the ultimate nose competition. Let's see. Followed up by a question relating to Nami's boobs. Okay. Let's see. What's the next one? Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so I've been wondering for a long time now, Oda, where did Luffy first learn the term Pirate King? That's actually an interesting question, because he uses it all the time. I'm going to be Kaizoku Oni. I'm going to be the Pirate King. So where did he hear that? Because the term was in the newspaper. Like, everybody called Roger that, so it makes sense. But Luffy was also like a little kid that he doesn't like to read the newspapers now. So he wasn't reading the newspapers back in like Makino's bar when he was like 5 years old. You know what I mean? So here's the answer Oda gives. He learned about it from Shanks' stories. Of course, Shanks did not tell him he used to be on the Pirate King's ship. Before meeting Shanks, Garp had told him to become a Marine. But since he wanted to be able to adventure freely, Luffy was already somewhat resistant to the idea. So I kind of like this because it's not the idea that like Luffy was 100% dedicated to being a Marine and then Shanks showed up and then Luffy's like, screw being a Marine, I want to be a pirate. No, because Luffy inherently wants that freedom. He's vying for that freedom in the world and he has the will of D. He was always sort of like reaching out to be something that, is the most free in the world, and even before he understood like Marines, pirates, revolutionaries, all the individual groups that lived in the ocean, when he was just a little kid, he still wanted to be the most free. So Garp was teaching him about being a Marine, and Luffy's just like, I don't know about this, Grandpa. I don't know if I want to be a Marine. Marines have to take orders and stuff, and that doesn't sound very fun. But he didn't really know about what pirates were yet, okay? Not until Shanks showed up and then gave him the straw hat, and then they got to, do the whole adventure with Higuma, where Shanks lost an arm. That was a fun adventure. But then after that moment, that's what, like, told Luffy, like, this is what a pirate is. This is what a pirate does. And they're ultimately free in this world. I want to be a pirate too, okay? And so that's the one that has the most freedom in the world. And even the most freedom out of all the pirates is the Pirate King. So, yeah, I'm sure, like, just from stories around town, the people in the bar, at Party's Bar on Fuchsia Village, and from Garp, and some other people, the term Gold Roger and Pirate King, Luffy had probably overheard them before Shanks. But Shanks was the one that really, like, cemented it in, like, that's, like, what is, like, the goal. And also, I like that Shanks did not tell Luffy, hey, I used to actually be on the Pirate King's ship. So Shanks would tell Luffy about all these stories involving Roger, but he never actually mentioned that he was the apprentice on Roger's vessel. Okay, so I really like that touch. It's an interesting touch there. Here's a question relating to Bepo. Okay, so there was the cover of chapter 1031, which is the cover that featured all of the number 2s on various ships. So we had Katakuri there, we had Zoro, of course, we had Rayleigh, and we had Bepo there, who is the number 2 on Law's crew, on the Heart Pirates. So somebody asked a question about that. He's like, hey, I like that cover page, but I didn't know that Bepo was, like, in the same class as, like, Zoro, Rayleigh, Katakuri, and King. Right? And Oda's response is like, well, actually the person said, I thought it was like Penguin, Sachi, and Bepo were all kind of collectively number 2. Nothing against Bepo, but he just doesn't seem that strong compared to like Zoro. Like Bepo versus Zoro, yeah, they're both technically number 2s, but I'm pretty sure Zoro would win. In fact, out of all those characters on that page, I would say Bepo would be the weakest. And so Oda responds with like, oh, well, see, not all of those characters have the title of first mate. That's an interesting point that Oda makes, because guess what? Zoro's official title is not first mate or vice captain. I think it's just swordsman, if anything. So not all those characters have the title of vice captain or first mate. It's just that they're the number 2s of the crew, sometimes officially, sometimes not. I know Ben Beckman is officially the first mate or vice captain. Rayleigh was the vice captain under Roger. But Katakuri and King, I think, are just like, it's pretty well known they're the strongest members of the crew right below the Yonko. Like Katakuri's the strongest right under Big Mom, King is the strongest right under Kaido, but they don't have the titles of vice captains, right? So Oda clarifies that, and he also goes on to say, was like, well, Sachi and Penguin are really dependable for most things. Like working together, they can actually accomplish quite a bit. But when it comes to like raw power, Sachi and Penguin have seen Beppo's Sulong form, and they know they are no match for him in terms of fighting power. So Oda's like, I acknowledge him, all right? So that is a very interesting way to put it, that of course Bepo being a mink would have a Sulong, and we just haven't seen it yet, but he's also a damn polar bear, which I remind you, in our world, polar bears are the largest species of bear that are currently existing. There was like the cave bear and stuff that were a lot bigger, but they're extinct at this point. Polar bears are freaking huge, and and they love Coca-Cola, and they rip apart fish and seals like it was nothing, right? I also am reminded of this piece of fan art that a guy by the name of Stephen Kai drew for me years ago. It was because I was one of the reviews of One Piece way back, right at the beginning of Wano, where I told this joke about, like, what happens if, Bepo wakes up and he's like this adorable little polar bear, but then he goes down to the shore and he, like, eats a fish and he's just like, roar, because he's still a damn bear. And Steven drew this amazing piece of fan art, and I like to think this is canon now. I like to think this is canon, where this is the moment where Sachi and Penguin, like, realized how truly terrifying Bepo can be in terms of fighting power if he ever got serious. See, he's very shy. He's a very meek bear, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to rip your head off, it's like, so he that kind of holds him back. But if he ever went into Sulong, he might actually lose that. He might go into his Sulong and be like, it's time to fight! It might be something like that, so don't sleep on Bepo. He's pretty powerful, yeah. Next up, we're going over from the Heart Pirates to the Kid Pirates, a question relating to all of the members of the Kid crew. And so Oda has, in fact, drawn not every single member. Oda mentions that the Kid crew has 31 people total. However, he doesn't draw 31 people here, but he does draw quite a sizable number of the people on Kid's crew. So we got some of the names. One of them is named Gig, the big guy with the leather jacket. His name is Gig. And then there's another dude just named Bubblegum. That's on the top left. I love the fact that, and of course they're all names relating to music and, like, the music scene, and, like, like Gig is like, oh, we got a gig, we got a job playing as a band at this club or whatever. Bubblegum, and so there's, like, other names, like I think Mosh is one of the names, like Mosh Pit, UK is one of the names. So yeah, I'm not going to go through every single member though. That's going to be saved for another video that I'll get to whenever. But yeah, that's like a separate thing altogether. But we do get to see quite a sizable chunk of Kid's crew, and they all look like either a punk band or a grunge band or like a heavy metal band, kind of all mixed into one. So I thought that was very interesting that Oda drew that. Let's see what's next. Oh, okay, here we go. Here's the question that everybody wanted to know about. All right, okay. This is like a legitimate thing that I was curious about that I did bring up in the review, okay? Okay, so remember when Robin turned into a giant naked woman when she fought Black Maria? We all remember that scene, right? And that was a good scene. That was, when we look back on One Piece, that'll probably be #1 scene. I'm going to get it framed and put it in my living room. Okay. So when Robin uses her, like, Giganto Mano and she becomes, like, a giant naked woman, there's, like, lines coming off of her, like, chest. And, like, I'm, like, sitting there even when I'm reviewing it, and I'm like, what is that? Like, I mean, obviously it's Oda's way of censoring her breasts, but she's supposed to be naked. So is it like she made, like, 2 extra hands to, like, grab onto her boobs so you can't see anything? Like, how does this work? So Oda actually received a lot of questions about this. I wasn't the only one that was curious. Some people were like, oh, it was a scar that she had. Other people were like, oh, they're just lines like that Oda drew, nothing more to it. This is a good one. Somebody thinks that they're actually the warning lines for Damanio, because when Robin went into her Giganto Floor, that was the technique she used right before she went into Damanio, the technique she actually used to defeat Black Maria, okay? So somebody was like, those are Damanio lines. They're like how your veins pop out of your head when you get really pissed and you're about to, like, punch somebody. So they're warning lines because Robin is very elegant. She's very graceful, of course. So she does not get mad in the typical sense, That's how she gets mad. When she goes into Giganto Fleur and you see her lines on her chest, that's how you know Damanio is coming, right? So I really like that idea, like they're warning lines. That's pretty cool. It's like Mob from Mob Psycho 100. That's like Mob's 99%. That's like Robin reaching 99%. You see those lines on her boobs, you run, okay? But no, the last person was, they were never breasts to begin with. They were onions. And it's like, okay, well, they're obviously not going to be onions. So Oda answers the question and sets it straight. Thank you so much for all those points of view. Now, which chosen one was the official answer? Da-da-da-dum! Take it away, Robin. And Robin actually makes a cameo appearance on the SBS. So Robin pops in. They were onions. They were actually onions. Even Oda's like, they were onions? They weren't breasts this whole time? What? And that's the end of it. So I guess that's the canonical answer. When Robin goes in Giganto Fleur, her giant naked woman form, her breasts turn into onions. Okay. But now we have a question, what type of onion? Because there's yellow onions, sweet onions, red onions, what kind of white onions? What kind of onions were they, Oda? I want to see that in SBS 103. All right, so next up is, this is another boob-related question. This is great. This is the last one before we get into Jinbei's voice actor. So this is an interesting one. So, hello, Oda. There's no end to the boob jokes in the SBS these days. Volume 100 had a whole page of nothing but boob jokes, and so she goes on, but then she says, you know what? The thing we ladies want to know is reveal Zoro's chest measurements. And I'm like, I am intrigued by this question. Okay. And so Oda's like, oh, yes, okay. How big is Zoro's chest? Well, about 110 centimeters. The SBS ends here. Bye, everybody. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. You know what's funny about this? Zoro now has the second largest chest measurements confirmed in all of One Piece. Obviously, there would be characters like there's female giants like Girth, who would obviously have bigger boobs than even Boa, obviously. But when it comes to the characters that have had their chest measurements actually revealed, of which I think Zoro might be the first guy, so Nami, Robin, Boa, Khalifa, Zoro ranks number 2 now. Nami's is, I believe, 98 or 99. Robin's, I think, is an even 100. And Boa's is 111. So Zoro and Boa, they're actually comparable, and if Zoro works out a little bit more, he might surpass Boa Hancock. So, I thought it was a far and away victory for Boa, because Robin was 100, but Boa just blows her out of the water. It's 111, so 11 centimeters larger. But no, I thought it was going to be Nami or Robin that were going to give Boa a run for her money, but no, it's Zoro. So I'm putting all the money on Zoro from here on out. Zoro, you can do this. Bulk up a little bit more, man, and you could be the largest chest in all of One Piece. And so now, ending us off with one of Jinbei's voice actors, Katsuhisa Hoki's questions that he actually answers is, what kind of devil fruit would Jinbei have if he had the option to get one? Just like how all the other Straw Hats, like Nami would have the Goro Goro, Zoro would have, his sword would have the Ua Ua no Mi. So it's what kind of devil fruit would Jinbei have? Now, because Jinbei, the logic here is because Jinbei is a fishman, so he can, swim, he can also walk on land. So Katsuhisa Hoki says, well, Jinbei would have the Tori Tori no Mi to allow him to fly. So that would be the option, his best choice, but not being able to swim would greatly upset Jinbei. That would make him depressed, basically, if Jinbei could not swim anymore, so he would never eat a devil fruit. But I guess if he absolutely had to pick, it would be a flight fruit, because it's okay, if I can't swim anymore, at least I'll be able to fly now, but the trade-off is not something he's willing to make, and that would make sense. That would greatly diminish his battle prowess as well. So Jinbei having a devil fruit was actually the worst idea ever, honestly. Every other member of the Straw Hats could have a devil fruit. I do not care. Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Zoro, they can all have devil fruits, but Jinbei cannot. And actually, the fact that he is a fishman and is on the crew now makes it way easier whenever one of the Straw Hats does something stupid, whenever Luffy and Chopper are fishing and they do something stupid and fall off the side of the damn ship. Now Jinbei can just, lift them back up, and it's not a big deal, okay? So, yeah, let's have Jinbei. He's pretty strong with his fishman karate and his jujitsu and his hockey. He doesn't need, a devil fruit, absolutely. So there's some other ones relating to Jinbei, like Katsuhisa Hoki draws a little sketch of Jinbei, but I think that was the most interesting question out of those ones, which brings SBS 102 to a close. So nothing really crazy important in this one. I think the Zoro breast size one was probably the most integral, of course, but there was still some very interesting ones in there. I like the little nose competition thing. I thought that was a lot of fun. So that was SBS 102, and because it was a month and a half late, the next SBS 103, I don't remember when that comes out. Is that, I think, maybe July when that comes out? I don't know. I'd have to check. Actually, I have the wiki open right now, so let's just do that. Okay, actually, so 103 does not have a release date yet. That was interesting. They're usually 3 months apart or so, 3 or 4 months apart. So the last one came out April 4th, so it would be July or August, but we just don't know. But anyway, thanks you guys for watching the video, and now moving on to horse facts. Hey, you thought I forgot, didn't you? Well, I didn't. Horse facts, go!
Tekking talks about horses.
Okay, so today for horse facts, we have an interesting one. We're going to be talking about the largest horse that's still alive on the planet right now, and that is, of course, the Shire horse, yes, or just the Shire. A huge horse from England. Obviously, you can tell by the size, this is a cold-blooded horse. It is a draft horse. The horses that were bred for carrying carts and various, like, farm implements and, like, you know, to plow the fields and stuff. It would make sense that those horses would be bred to be the most hardy, which also would make it one of the largest horses, if not the largest horse in the entire world, okay? So it's pretty cool. They are actually not even just for farming, but back in the day when canal systems were the primary mode of transportation. So before even steam engines were created, you know, they had to, you know, tow ships through canals, and like sometimes they would have to do this thing where they would actually have these gates in the river. So, you know, if a river, you know, sloped down, you can't, like, you know, sail a ship, it would break. So they would actually have these moments where you'd like close off the boat in this like gate, and then you drain the water would go down and the gate would open and it would go through. And throughout this was going on, you needed some sort of like heavy pack animal in order to like carry the ship or like guide the ship. They would use like donkeys sometimes or mules, but horses were also used. And so for the larger canal ships, they were used to tow them. So horsepower is the original horsepower. But they were also probably the most used for carrying beer supplies to taverns back in the day. So beer suppliers, you know, they didn't have trucks. So what they would do is they would get a bunch of their kegs of their beer, load them up in a cart, and it would be a very heavy cart because there's a bunch of, you know, barrels of booze. And so you needed a really strong pack animal to carry all that booze to get to the taverns and the drinking dens. People need their booze, damn it! And that's where the Shire came in. So they'd strap that cart to the Shire, and the Shire would let out a mighty neigh. Like, nay! I will get the beer to the townspeople, no matter what the cost. And then the horse would go and then deliver the beer, and then people would get drunk and forget about their lives for a moment or two. It's all thanks to the Shire. Also why I've seen quite a few like beer commercials that feature the Shire for that reason, you know, because it's sort of like a historical traditional thing. Like, you know, I remember there was a Super Bowl commercial a couple years ago. I don't know if actually it might have been a Clydesdale or a Shire, but it was a really big horse that was like part of a Budweiser commercial, and it's like that's the reason why, because Clydesdales as well. Any sort of really large draft horse would have been used to carry these carts to the drinking taverns and stuff like that. So, you know, that still lives on today in the legacy. Well, anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Bye.